Throwback Thursday, 1986. Chris Abel joins us now. He's a tech expert. 1986, Chris. As we do every week. Yeah, I got to confess where you were, my man.
Oh, well, I was a very, very young factory worker in 1986. So I worked in a plastics factory where I had to service injection molding machines. So we'd spit out the product and I'd have to break it apart and assemble it. Here's the fun thing that I learned. I learned all about edible plastic. So this is plastic that is safe for humans to consume. It goes into your system and then you poop it out later on. And at the time in 1986, this was sold to restaurants for milkshakes. So they would mix it into your milkshake. So anybody who can remember back to the 1980s, those milkshakes were terribly hard to suck and get any kind of ice cream out of. That's because they had plastic mixed into it.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. Although when you say you're a very young factory worker, I feel like there's some child labor going on or something.
Well,
that's fascinating.
When your dad's an engineer, he has friends, right?
Right, I guess so.
Hey, your son looks old and strapping. Yeah, send him on over. I'll get him something to do. And he can learn about technology and plastics and edible plastic.
Oh, that's crazy. I had no idea. That just opened up a whole new, Ben, take note of that. We need to learn more about this conversation from Chris Abel. My goodness. Okay, we weren't here for edible plastics, although that is probably the most amazing thing of the week so far here on Shane Tuna the Night Shift. Star Wars, I feel like, has lost its way a little bit, Chris. Maybe it's because I'm a purist about the old ones. I don't mind the new shows. I know that the storylines can be expanded on very three-dimensionally. I get that. There's a new video game out. It's made by a Canadian company, which is cool. Yes. But I'm not sure that is it really a Star Wars game, like legit to the storyline? What's your review of Star Wars Outlaws?
Yeah, Star Wars Outlaws, which has been trending on Twitter for like 2 days solid. Huge anticipation for this game. And yes, awesome people making it. Ubisoft Toronto is involved in making this game. The problem with the game that I found was that this is a game that takes on not the Jedis, not the Force, not the lightsabers, not all the things that usually make Star Wars very, very popular. Instead, this is a young woman sort of being a Han Solo type. So she is a rebellious kind of bounty hunter. She's got a bounty on her head and she's trying to get rid of it. And she goes off to all sort of the crime denizens and cantinas that Han Solo is sort of known for. And that's kind of cool, except a lot of the game is sort of stuff that you've seen in plenty of other games. She sort of skulks around stealthily into places, knocks out guards from behind, rappels up walls, steals codes, hacks into computers. Great. But none of that I would think of as being very specific to Star Wars. And that's kind of what's lacking with the game. There's no technology here that we haven't seen in any other game. And there's nothing here that I can point to as being a very specific Star Wars thing. It is a good game. It's worth playing. It takes 30 hours to play through the game, costs $90. But it doesn't add up to being a great game. You know, this is like 3 stars, 6 out of 10, that kind of thing. I don't see it as launching a new line of action figures or people are going to cosplay as this woman character, Kay Vess, who I think could be a little bit more rebellious. I mean, if you're going to try to take on Han Solo, then you got to kind of, dial it up. You can't be quite so plain.
Now, this is where I'm going to expose, I think it was young child Anakin who drove the speed racer.
Yes.
And that sounds more in line with Anakin's life of, sneaking around. He wasn't a thief, but that world is right. You know what I'm saying?
It's sort of they're trying to go for that. What we've seen so much in Star Wars has always been the lightsabers and the Force. And I appreciate that. It's like, let's go in another direction. Let's go visit the dark alleyways. Let's go to the places where it's not always about good guys versus bad guys. It just doesn't come in, like what it feels like. A good analogy is that it feels like everything is leftovers from previous meals we've all had.
Right.
Everything's been reheated. There's nothing here that's new. There's nothing here that pushes the phenomenon forward. It's not a bad game. And if you are looking to, do these kinds of things, to have shootouts and do stealth stuff, yeah, sure. But for $90 and for 30 hours of your life, it could be better.
There you go, Chris Abel, and it is Star Wars Outlaws is the name of it. Now, Chris, I don't know if you know this about Chris Abel, but he's a big fan of a clean floor, and let's grab a little clip of the video here of what's going on in the audio.
If you have hardwood floors, do you need a vacuum, or is sweeping enough? Coming to Canada later this year, I had a chance to try Dyson's Wash G1, which is not a mop, it's not a vacuum, it's a wet floor cleaner. This means it uses microfiber rollers to glide across hardwood floors, and it really does glide smoothly, kissing them with just enough wetness to make them damp, and then scoops up dirt and crumbs with suction. With hardwood and tile surfaces, it's easier to tackle stubborn stains if you wet them first. That's the idea.
That's sexy. First of all,
Thank you.
It's very good. Okay, so it's not a mop. It's not a vacuum. It sounds interesting, but if it starts with a capital D and ends with an Dyson, it's probably not cheap either.
It's $900. It's called the Dyson Wash G1. Yeah.
I feel like it's got to kiss you back in that case.
Yeah. Well, one day. But no, it really, I think for some people who have hardwood floors, those are very popular. This does become a problem of, I can't really use a vacuum. I can't really sweep it. What can I do? I'm not going to use a Swifter. No, actually, in that sense, it is a good solution. But yes, the usual problem with a lot of Dyson products is that they always come at a premium price.
They do come at a premium price. Did you like it though? Did it worked for you generally?
It did. I liked it. I liked the fact that at the end, it automatically separates everything that's been gathered into one tank that has fluids and the other tank that has dry goods, so that it makes it much easier to dispose.
Yeah, and here, so I use, I have a little shark vac that I use here, but then I use the Swiffer Wet to do it. It takes 2 Swiffer Wet pads to do my apartment, and it's so wet in the beginning, and then kind of you're like scraping it at the end, and it sounds like all right. Okay, before we're done, how to make a movie, book, a reality. Tell me about what you got going on here. We've got about a minute and a half.
You got about a minute and a half. In the Ghostbusters movies, there's a fictional book that they talk about called Tobin's Spirit Guide that has all the information about the ghosts that they go after. It does not exist in real life, but a company in New Zealand called Magnolia Props decided, can we make that? And they certainly make props very real, so you can make the book leather bound, looks fantastic. But of course, the 500 pages inside would all be blank. They used artificial intelligence. They reached out to various communities on the web and said, write articles for this book that we can put in. And then they used artificial intelligence not to write the book, but to make it cohesive, to make it seem like a book that was written in 1929. So AI didn't write the book, but it made the book seem like it was written in 1929 with illustrations that look like they're woodcut. The fun part is not just to look up all the ghosts from the Ghostbusters movies, but they included articles for other spirits and ghosts from other movies. So there's an entry in there about the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who. There's an entry there about Mogwai from Gremlins. I even love that they had an obscure entry about Gorgar, which is from a talking pinball machine from 1979 that I love. I was thrilled to see that in there. But just the delight that you have 500 pages and they're actually worth reading. They're actually worth sitting down and going through. And that this book, which should be fiction, doesn't exist, now does.
And then it's kind of cool because it's done by humans, but then turned into a different period piece with AI.
That's right. They were gathering articles and also photographs. So you've got a photograph of Beetlejuice, for example. He's in the book. But they made it. The AI took that photograph and converted it so it looked like a woodcut print from 1929. So it looks like an old from antiquity. In fact, everything about this book, they've even aged it. They've given it the old book smell when you get it. I've been to rare book libraries. I'm a research status at the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library. And I was amazed at how true they made this book seem like it's over 100 years old. It's just amazing.
That's cool stuff. I love it. Chris Abel, thanks for popping in. From vacuums to spooky books and video games and more, all of the tech that makes it all happen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Shane Hewitt and the Night Shift continues. We're going to take a little break and we're going to come back with Richard Krauss show update about Adam Sandler and his thoughts about how you think he dresses.